I thought she was watching me work. Then she asked, "Could you show me your hands today?" The old theater was screaming. Most people would say it was just the wind or the rain, but I could hear the real sound under all that. A low, tired groan in the walls. The kind of sound timber makes when it is carrying more weight than it should. I stood in the middle of the main hall, boots sunk in a thin layer of wet dust. The air smelled like mold, old curtains, and rust. Above me, the main beam over the stage sagged just enough to make my stomach tighten. I did not need my tools to know it was wrong. I could feel it through the floorboards, up through my legs. The building was not safe. Not yet. "You're making that face again," a voice said from the side. I turned. Winterhill stepped out from the shadows by the stage. The work lights caught her as she brushed plaster dust off a black blazer that did not belong in a place like this. Her boots did, though. Heavy leather, scuffed at the toes, like she had been here every day. She looked like she had not slept much. Not just last night, but for weeks. Her mouth was tight. Her eyes were sharp. She looked like someone who had been fighting too long and did not know how to stop. "What face?" I asked. My voice came out rough. I had not spoken to anyone all day. "The face that says my project budget just exploded," she said, walking closer. She stopped a few feet away, like she knew I did not like people crowding me while I worked. "Tell me the roof is not about to come down on my head." "The roof wants to," I said. I lifted my flashlight and traced the line of the big timber over the stage. The wood looked dark and heavy, like it was soaked through. "The beam up there is full of water," I said. "It has been for years. It is heavier than it should be. The walls were not built for that. If we leave it, it will fail." Winter did not panic. Most owners did. She just stared up at the beam, jaw locked, shoulders straight. "What does it need?" she asked. "Steel," I said. "A plate bolted through the wood to carry the load. Custom work. Not cheap." "I do not care about cheap," she said. "I care about this place standing." Her eyes came back to me. Dark. Direct. There was fear there, but deeper than that there was something else. Stubborn. Fierce. "Fix it," she said. "Then we start now," I said. "If your old contractor calls the city, I want this roof carrying its own weight before any inspector walks in here." "Too late," she said. "He already called. Said he is filing a report tomorrow. He wants this place shut down." I looked up at the sagging beam again. If the city came in and saw it like this, they would not need anyone's story. They would slap a red tag on the door and lock the whole theater down for months. "He is not getting that," I said. "Not tonight." I spread the drawings out on a stack of plywood. The pages crackled under my hands as I smoothed them flat. I could feel Winter watching me while I marked out where the temporary supports had to go, where the new steel would sit, where the old building could take force, and where it could not. "Grab that work light," I said, nodding toward the stand lamp by the wall. "We are going downstairs." The basement felt like a bunker. The air was heavy and cold, with a wet concrete smell that never left your nose. One yellow work light threw long shadows on the brick. Pipes rattled overhead when the wind hit the roof. The main posts and footings for the beam above sat down here. If I wanted to help the roof, I had to start at the ground. "Put the jack under this beam," I said. Winter carried the hydraulic jack like it was nothing. She set it where I pointed. I slid cribbing under the base, lined it up, and checked the level. "Tighter," I said. She pumped the handle. The jack hissed, and the steel started to lift. I could feel the change in the air when the weight shifted off the old wood and onto the jack. "One more inch," I said. She leaned into it. She was not big, but she used her whole body. No wasted movement. No drama. Just work. "Hold," I said. She let the handle drop and backed away a step, breathing hard. Her hands were gray with dust. There was a smear on her cheek, a bright streak across skin that usually looked like glass. "You are good at this," I said without thinking. "I am an architect," she said. "I know how these things should work. I just usually pay someone else to crawl around in the dark with spiders." I checked the beam again. Solid, for now. The jack had it. Before I could answer, there was a sharp crack somewhere above us. The lights blinked. Then everything went black. The sudden silence of the fans made the rain sound louder. It hammered the roof like fists. "Don't move," I said. My hand found the small flashlight on my belt by memory. I thumbed it on. A thin cone of light cut through the dust. Winter was standing where I had last seen her, but her hands were clenched into fists. "Power is out," she said. Her voice was steady, but too tight. If the power is out, the pumps stop. And if the pumps stop, the basement floods, I said. New concrete washes out. Jack loses its footing. Water already licked at the floor near the old drain. We need the generators, I said. They are in my truck. The back door is swollen shut from the rain, she said. It sticks. Then we unstick it, I said. We ran up the stairs. The wind howled against the steel loading doors, shaking them on their hinges. Rain pushed under in a dark line. Hold the light, I said. She lifted the beam so it hit the latch and frame. I grabbed a short 4x4 brace and jammed it under the handle at an angle, wedging it against the floor plate. The wood fought me. The metal bit into my hands. My knuckles scraped the rough edge. I slammed the brace home with the heel of my palm. The door shuddered, then held. The worst of the wind stayed outside. You are bleeding, Winter said quietly. I looked down. Blood was running from a split across my knuckles, mixing with dust and rain. It is nothing, I said. The door is secure. She stepped closer. The flashlight dropped from my face to my chest. The light hit the front of my shirt, then my hand. Her perfume was faint under the smell of wet metal and concrete. Something warm, like vanilla. It did not fit this cold, ugly room, but it made it feel less sharp. She reached out and took my hand. Her fingers were cool, sure. She turned my palm toward the light and studied the scrape like it was a crack in a wall. You saved the footing, she said. We saved it, I answered. She looked up at me. In the harsh beam of the flashlight, her eyes looked darker and softer at the same time. There was dust on her lashes. The corners of her mouth shook once, like she wanted to say more and swallowed it. She did not say thank you. She just squeezed my hand, firm, once, and then let go. Generator, she said, turning away. Let's get the pumps going before we need a boat down there. For the next hour, we worked without talking much. She held the light. I hauled the generator in from the truck. We sloshed back down to the basement, boots splashing through cold water. I primed the pump, pulled the cord, and the small engine roared to life. Dirty water started to shoot out through the hose and into the old floor drain. Winter wiped her forehead with the back of her wrist. Her blazer was ruined. Her hair was a mess. Her boots were soaked. She still stood tall. Most clients would have gone home hours ago. She stayed. I told myself she was only watching the work. But when I caught her glance drop to my hands again, just for a second, I felt something move under my ribs that had nothing to do with old beams or math. I told myself it was nothing. I was wrong. The next 3 weeks turned into a war. Not the loud kind with shouting and drama. The slow kind. The kind where every day you show up and push back against something heavy that wants to fail. I started getting to the theater before sunrise. The streets in Portland were still wet from night rain. The sky was that soft gray that never quite woke up. Winter's car was always already there. She set up a small office in the old ticket booth. A cheap space heater hummed by her feet. Plans were taped to the glass where posters used to hang. Most mornings she was bent over her laptop when I came in, hair pulled into a loose knot, blazer on, coffee steaming beside her. That first week I noticed something. There was a bakery 3 blocks out of my usual way. The first time I passed it, I saw her through the glass on a different morning, paying for one single cinnamon twist. Not a box, not a bag for later. Just that one. The next Tuesday, I changed my route. I walked in, bought 2 cinnamon twists, and took them to the theater. I set the small paper bag on the corner of her desk without a word and went to check the overnight shoring. I kept doing it. Tuesdays, Thursdays, same bag, same spot. She never said thank you. But I noticed she always started with the twist before she opened her email. Like it was armor. Up in the rafters, I welded brackets and sistered new lumber to the old beams. I checked my measurements twice. I did not trust the building yet. I did not trust the past work that had been hidden under paint and drywall. Sometimes, when I looked down from the scaffolding, I caught Winter watching me. Not the way some clients watched. Not like I was a worker on a ladder. Her eyes followed what I was doing. How I braced my feet. Where I set the jack. She watched like an architect, taking in the structure and how it behaved. I told myself that was all it was. The morning Lee Foster showed up, I was on the main lobby scaffold welding a bracket to a column. Sparks fell in a hot orange shower, bouncing on the floor below. I could see the front doors through my face shield. They swung open hard. Lee walked in like he owned the building. Big guy, loud voice, clipboard in hand. This time he was not alone. A man in a city vest followed behind him, looking around like he was already nervous. I flipped up my shield and shut off the torch. "Stop work," Lee shouted. His voice echoed off the high ceiling. "This site is unsafe." I brought an inspector to see it for himself. Winter stepped out of the ticket booth. Hard hat on now. Arms crossed. Jaw tight. "Get out of my theater, Lee," she said. "As soon as he sees what you did," Lee said, jerking his thumb toward the inspector, "nobody is coming in here again. You removed a load-bearing wall without a permit. This whole place is a risk." The inspector shifted his weight. "Ma'am, if there were unpermitted structural changes, I do have to take a look." I did not shout from the scaffold. I unhooked my safety harness and climbed down one rung at a time. My boots hit the floor with soft thuds. I walked past Lee without even looking at him and stopped in front of the inspector. "My name is Caspian James," I said. "I am the structural engineer on this project. License number 49204. I pulled a folded set of drawings from my back pocket and opened them on a plywood stack. "The wall he is talking about," I said, pointing, "was a light partition built in the 80s. It never carried the roof. Here is the original layout. Here is the demo permit. Stamped and signed." The inspector leaned in. I could see his eyes moving over the lines. "And this," I added, tapping a section filled with numbers, "is the load calculation I filed with the city. The roof load is carried by these trusses, not that wall. You can see the math." He took a breath. "The numbers look correct," he said. They were correct. I had done them 3 times the night before, just in case. I turned then and faced Lee. "If you want to talk about unsafe work," I said, "we can talk about the rotten joist you covered with joint compound in the east wing." His face went dark red. "I have dated photos," I continued, "taken before we pulled your drywall. Fungal growth. Wet framing. That is why we are here now, fixing your shortcuts." The inspector's head snapped toward Lee. "Is that true?" he asked. Lee sputtered. "He is twisting it. This whole thing is a mess. She hired a cowboy. He is going to bring this place down." The inspector folded the drawings shut and handed them back to me. "I see a stamped set of plans and permits," he said flatly. "If Mr. James is the engineer of record and the math checks out, the work is legal. If you have a complaint about previous conditions, you can file it separately." He turned to Winter. "Ma'am, as of now I do not see cause to stop work." Winter nodded once. Her fingers gripped the edge of the ticket. Counter like she was hanging on. Lee stared between the 3 of us. "This place is going to fail," he snapped. "And when it does, I will be there to take pictures." He stormed out, yanking the doors hard enough to make the glass rattle. The room was suddenly quiet. I folded the drawings and slid them back into my pocket. My hands were steady, but my chest felt tight. Winter let out a long breath. Her shoulders dropped half an inch. It looked like she had been holding herself upright by pure will. "He is not going to stop," she said softly. "Neither are we," I said. I started to turn back toward the scaffold. "Caspian," she said. I looked back at her. She was watching me in a different way now. Not like a contractor or a name on a license. Like a person who had just caught someone standing between them and a moving car. "You kept pictures," she said, "of his rot. You planned for him to come back." "I keep records," I said. "That is the job." She shook her head a little. "No," she said. "The job is numbers." That was protection. I did not know what to do with that. No one had ever called what I did protection before. They called it paperwork. They called it liability. I shrugged. "It is all the same to me," I said. She stepped around the ticket counter and walked toward me. Her hard hat sat a little crooked now. There was a streak of gray dust on her cheekbone. Up close, her eyes looked darker, and the skin under them was thin with exhaustion. She reached out and touched my sleeve. Not much, just her fingers brushing the rough flannel at my forearm. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for standing in front of us." "I was just where the plans were," I said. My voice sounded rough in my own ears. "No," she said. "You were a wall. A real load-bearing wall," she meant. We stood there for a second too long. The lobby hummed with the sound of the pumps and the rain outside, but between us it felt strangely still. Her hand was still on my sleeve. I was close enough to see a tiny freckle near her left eye. Close enough to see the way her mouth parted like she was about to say something else. I wanted to close the distance. My hands actually twitched like they were ready to move to her waist. For once, to hold something that was not made of wood or steel. But if I crossed that line without thinking, everything might crack. She was my client. I was the engineer holding her entire project up on stamped paper and steel. If we failed here, it would not just be my heart that broke. It would be her theater, her future. So I stepped back. I need to finish that weld before the rain gets worse, I said. Her hand dropped from my sleeve. For a second, something like disappointment flickered across her face. Then she straightened her shoulders and put the mask back on. Then go do your thing, she said. I will do mine. I went back up the ladder, rung by rung. My hands wrapped around the cold metal rails. My chest still felt like it had a jack pressing up under it. From the scaffold, I could see her go back to the ticket booth. On her desk, the paper bag with the cinnamon twist sat open. She broke it in half and ate it piece by piece, eyes on her laptop, shoulders tight. I told myself to focus on the beam, on the math, on the load. I told myself she was only watching me work. But by then, I knew that was not the full truth anymore. The week everything almost snapped didn't start with a big fight. It started with a number on a screen. We were in the tiny office off the lobby, the one that used to be a storage closet. The space heater hummed by the door. Rain tapped at the high window like fingers. Winter sat at her desk, glasses on, staring at a spreadsheet. I was at the folding table we were using as my desk, covered in drawings and a half-empty coffee cup. We're out, she said. Out of what? I asked, not looking up from my notes. Contingency, she said. If the steel plates don't arrive by Friday and we miss the inspection window, the bank freezes our next draw. No money, no payroll, no more work. I set my pencil down and looked at her. She had one hand pressed to her left temple, fingers rubbing a small circle there. I had learned that was her tell. When the math on her side got bad, she did that. I talked to the fabricator, I said. They're cutting tomorrow. I'll drive down myself and pick the plates up. No delivery delays. That's 4 hours there and back, she said. On top of 12-hour days here. I like driving, I said. Gives me time to think. She spun her chair to face me fully. Why are you doing this, Caspian? She asked. I blinked. Doing what? This, she said, waving a hand at the drawings, the heater, the dust. You could work for a big firm downtown. Design shiny towers. Make twice what I'm paying you. Why are you killing yourself for a broken theater that might not even open? I looked down at my hands on the table. Scars across the knuckles. Faint burn marks from welding. Graphite smudged into the lines of my fingers. High-rises are glass boxes, I said slowly. They go up. They look pretty. Then another one goes up next to them. I lifted my eyes to hers. This place has memory, I said. You can feel it when you walk in. It's worth saving. The words came out rougher than I meant, like they had been scraping on my ribs for a while. She watched me for a long second. You always talk like that? She asked. Like what? Like you're describing a person, not a building, she said. I didn't answer. Because she was right. I did not just see rotten beams and good bones in the vanguard. I saw something stubborn and hurt, trying to stand even after other people had done it wrong. Kind of like her. Winter pushed back from her desk and came over to mine. She didn't stop on the other side. She leaned her hip against the edge of my table, close enough that I could smell coffee and something warm on her skin. She was wearing jeans and a soft-looking gray sweater instead of a blazer. Her hair was down, falling over one shoulder. It made her look less like the boss and more like the woman who stayed after everyone else went home and fought with spreadsheets until midnight. I thought you were just watching the building, she said quietly. What? The way you move through it, she said. Checking doors, fixing locks, adjusting heater vents. I thought you were just obsessed with the structure. I frowned. I am obsessed with the structure. You're also watching everything else, she said. You noticed the back door latch didn't seat right and fixed it before I said a word. You fixed the loose rail by the side entrance because you watched me trip on it once. You bring cinnamon twists on the days my face looks like I haven't slept. My neck got hot. I looked away. It's just data, I said. Observation. It's care, she said. The word hit harder than I expected. Before I could come up with something to deflect, she reached for my hand. Not the polite shake. Not an accident. She took my right hand off the table like it was something important, turned it palm up, and studied it in the yellow light. Could you show me your hands today? She asked, voice soft. I swallowed. You're already holding one, I said, trying to keep my tone light. These hands, she said, like she didn't hear the joke. Her thumb traced over the rough pads of my fingers, the scar across my knuckles from the loading dock latch. They've been holding this whole place together since the day you walked in. Her touch was gentle, but every spot her skin brushed felt like it lit up. The room suddenly felt too small. The air too thin. Winter, I said, my voice low. Careful. She looked up. Her eyes were dark, steady, and very, very close. What am I supposed to be careful of? She asked. If I start holding you, I said. I'm not sure I can keep pretending it's just about the theater. The space heater hummed. Rain slid down the window in slow lines. Let the theater stand on its own for a second, she said. You've taught it how. She stepped into me. Not shy, not unsure. A clear step. Her fingers let go of my hand and caught the front of my flannel instead, gripping the fabric right over my chest. I stood up without even thinking about it. The chair scraped the floor. Suddenly, we were almost the same height. Her chin lifted, my head bent. This is a bad idea, I said. I've lived on bad ideas, she answered. This doesn't feel like one. She tugged my shirt, small but certain, and that was it. The dam broke. I leaned in and kissed her. It wasn't neat. It wasn't careful. It was a hard, hungry slide of mouth to mouth that tasted like coffee, fear, and relief all mixed. Together, her hands reached up and tangled in my hair, pulling me closer like she had been holding back for weeks, and finally stopped. I wrapped my arms around her waist and lifted her onto the edge of the desk. Papers slid off, fluttering to the floor. I did not care if every invoice in the room scattered. Her legs brushed the front of my thighs. Her breath hitched against my lips. She tilted her head and deepened the kiss. No hesitation, no half measure. The heater noise faded. The rain turned into a dull hush. All I could track was the warmth of her body pressed against mine and the way her fingers curled in the back of my shirt, like she was anchoring herself. I pulled back only an inch, my forehead resting against hers, breathing hard. If we do this, I said, I can't pretend you're just my client anymore. Good, she whispered, because I'm tired of pretending you're just my engineer. Her eyes were bright, almost shocked, like she couldn't believe she'd said it out loud. Then she smiled, small and real. Somewhere down the hall, a pipe clanged. The building reminded us it still existed. She slid her hands down my chest and let them rest over my heart. You're still going to finish those calculations, she said, a little breathless. Yeah, I said. I am. And I'm still going to fight the bank and the donors. Yeah. But we're not doing it alone anymore, she finished. The way she said we sank in deep. I kissed her again, slower this time. Less like an explosion, more like a promise. For the first time since I took the job, the theater didn't feel like the only thing I was trying to keep standing. Now there was her too. And I had no idea that 2 days later, the building would try to test both at the same time. The building picked its moment. 2 days after that kiss, I was in the basement checking the new posts when a sound tore through the theater. It was not thunder. It was worse. A heavy, ripping crunch from above, followed by a deep boom and the sharp crack of plaster breaking. Then silence. My heart slammed against my ribs. I took the stairs 3 at a time. Dust filled the lobby like fog. White powder hung in the air, drifting in slow clouds. I coughed and waved a hand in front of my face. Winter, I shouted. I'm here, she called back, somewhere near the mezzanine. I pushed through the haze and saw her standing by the rail. Her hard hat was on, her hair and shoulders covered in dust, eyes watering, but she was upright. I'm okay, she said. I'm okay. I followed her gaze. A 10-foot section of the decorative plaster ceiling over the balcony was gone. The pieces were in the seats below, broken into jagged chunks. The lath was exposed. Above that, the wood looked wrong. Dark. Dead. I grabbed a flashlight and climbed the mezzanine steps. Winter stayed on the main level, eyes tracking me. I pointed the light at the open section. The joists were black and soft. Rot. Deep and old. My jaw clenched. He covered this, I said. Lee did. He painted right over it. Before Winter could answer, the front doors opened. Nayli Wilson, the head city inspector, walked in. She wore a rain jacket and carried a clipboard. Behind her, looking way too satisfied in a bright yellow coat, was Lee Foster. Anonymous tips said there was a ceiling collapse, Lee said, smiling wide. Thought you should see it, nah. Nayli took in the fallen plaster, the exposed joists, the black wood. Her face went tight. Everyone out, she said. Now. Wait, I said, stepping toward her. This is pre-existing. We just exposed it. We can fix it. It's a structural failure over seating, she said. In a public space. You know the rules, Caspian. I have to red tag it until a full review is done. How long? Winter asked. Her voice was already breaking. 6 weeks, Nayli said. Minimum. 6 weeks. We had 2 until opening. The loan terms would eat her alive. Nayli pulled a red sticker from her vest and slapped it on the glass front door. It looked bright and ugly in the gray light. Everyone out, she repeated. We packed up in a hurry. Tools, ladders, papers. Lee watched us from the lobby. He did not say anything. He did not have to. His face said enough. In the parking lot, the rain came down steady. The red tag shone through the glass like a wound that would not close. Winter stood in the middle of the cracked asphalt, arms wrapped around herself. Her eyes never left the door. It's over, she said. Her voice was flat and quiet, like she had finally run out of fight. He won. No, I said. She turned to me. Her cheeks were wet, but I could not tell if it was rain or tears. You heard her, she said. 6 weeks. The bank stops the draw. I default. They take the building. I lose everything. You lose weeks of work and get nothing. I stepped closer. I can write the structural review tonight, I said. I can design a shoring system that bypasses the rotten joists. If I stamp it and get a second engineer to sign off, we can file an emergency appeal. Nayli can give us a 48-hour window to fix it. You can't do that in one night, she said. It's not impossible, I said. It's just hard. Why? She whispered. Why are you still fighting for this? I looked at her, soaked in the rain, dust streaked on her face, eyes wide with fear and anger. Because I'm not just the engineer anymore, I said. I'm the guy who is not leaving you here alone. I reached into my truck and pulled out her hard hat. Go home, I said gently, wiping rain off the brim with my thumb. Shower. Try to sleep. Leave your phone on. I'll call when I have something real. I drove home and did not sleep. My kitchen table turned into a job site. I spread every drawing we had across it. I took out a fresh pad of paper and started over. Loads, spans, forces. I designed a steel frame that would carry the balcony and ceiling without touching the rotten joists at all. It was not pretty. It did not need to be. It needed to be strong. At 3 a.m, I called Donovan, my old mentor. He grumbled when he answered, but he listened to the numbers. Then he sighed. Send me the calcs, he said. I'll meet you at 6 to sign the peer review. This place is making me soft. By 7, I was standing at the city counter with 2 stamped sets of calculations. My hands shook only when the clerk walked away with them. At 8, I pulled into the theater lot again. Winter's car was already there. She sat behind the wheel, staring at the red tag on the door. She looked like she hadn't moved. I tapped on her window. She rolled it down slowly. Get your boots on, I said, holding up the new permit. We have 48 hours to install an emergency support system. If it works, the tag comes off. She stared at the paper, then at me. 48 hours, she repeated. 48, I said. We can do a lot in that time. Her eyes filled, but this time she blinked the tears away before they fell. She opened the door and swung her boots onto the wet pavement. All right, she said. Let's work. The next 2 days blurred together. Donovan showed up in old jeans and a tool belt, cursing under his breath about being too old for this. Then he worked harder than both of us. We rigged chain hoists from the brick columns. We lifted the new steel into place slowly, inches at a time. Winter ran the controls like she had been doing it for years, eyes locked on my hands as I gave her signals. Up, hold, down half an inch. Every bolt, every weld, every bracket mattered. The storm outside beat against the roof like it wanted in. We did not let it distract us. On the second night, the wind screamed. The power flickered. The generator kept the welders humming. Near midnight, the last piece of steel slid into its seat. I tightened the final bolts until the wrench bit into my palm. By the time we finished, we were soaked in sweat and rain, covered in metal dust and soot. My back ached. Winter's hair stuck to her face. Donovan leaned on a column, breathing hard. We had done everything we could. The next morning, Nayli came back. She stood in the center of the lobby with her arms crossed, boots tracking rain onto the floor. Her eyes went up to the new steel frame. It did not match the old plaster at all. It was heavy and obvious and honest. All right, she said. Show me. I walked over to the temporary posts we had used to hold the roof while we worked. If the math is right, I said, we do not need these anymore. If it's wrong, Winter asked. It's not, I said. I took the sledgehammer and swung at the first post. It shot out with a loud clang and fell to the floor. The building made a deep, low sound, a settling groan. But nothing moved. No cracks. No fresh dust. No shift. I hit the second post. Then the third. Each time, the same result. The new frame took the load. The old theater stood. Nayli checked the deflection with her laser tool. The numbers stayed where they should. She shook her head and smiled. You are insane, she said. Also, it passes. She walked to the door, peeled the red tag off the glass, and crumpled it in her hand. Winter watched her do it. She did not cheer. She just started shaking. Her hands, her shoulders, her mouth. I dropped the sledge and went to her. It held, I said. She looked up at me, eyes full and bright. You held, she whispered. Then she stepped into me and let go. She buried her face in my chest. Her fingers grabbed the front of my shirt and pulled tight, like she needed proof I was solid. I wrapped my arms around her and held on. For a long moment, the old theater was quiet. No screaming beams, no angry wind. Just us. 6 days later, the Vanguard opened. It wasn't a huge gala. Mostly local donors. Some press, people in suits trying to look important. The lobby lights were warm and soft, hiding the rough edges we had not finished yet. I stood in the back by the sound booth in a suit that did not fit my shoulders right. I kept adjusting the collar and checking the balcony lines out of habit. You're hiding, a voice said at my elbow. Winter. She wore a dark green dress that made her eyes look even deeper. Her scars from work and stress and lack of sleep did not vanish. Somehow, they made her look even more real. I'm monitoring live load, I said. Too many people on the right, and I move them. She smiled. Come on, she said. You're part of this whether you like it or not. She took my hand and walked me toward the small platform at the front. People turned. The room quieted. Thank you all for coming, she said, voice carrying clearly. You know this building has been through a lot. So have we. A few soft laughs. People keep telling me I saved the Vanguard, she said. But buildings do not stand because of one person. They stand because someone takes the weight with you. She looked at me then. Right at me. I am the architect, she said. I drew the lines. But this place needed someone to hold it up. Someone who refused to walk away when it got hard. She reached into her dress pocket and pulled out a set of keys. Not the shiny ceremonial ones. The real ones. Heavy brass. The kind that open all the doors that matter. She pressed them into my palm in front of everyone. Caspian James, she said. Partner. For a second, I couldn't speak. The metal bit into my skin. The words sat between us. Partner. I closed my hand around the keys and nodded. Partner, I said. The room clapped. Cameras flashed. I did not care about any of it. All I saw was the woman in front of me, shoulders back, eyes steady, smiling like she finally had someone to lean against. She leaned up, lips close to my ear. Now take me to the roof, she whispered. The good part of the tour. We slipped away after the speeches and climbed the service stairs. The air got cooler and clearer as we went up. When we stepped onto the roof, the city spread out below us, lights reflected in wet streets. The steel truss we installed sat just under our feet, hidden but strong. Winter walked to the low parapet and rested her hands on it. The wind lifted her hair off her face. She turned back to me. Up here, she said. It finally feels like it's ours. It is, I said. She stepped closer. Caspian, she said quietly. I asked you once to show me your hands. Today I want to do it right. She took both of mine in hers. Turned them palm up. Studied the scars, the fresh burns, the lines. These hands held up my theater, she said. My job. My sanity. She lifted her eyes to mine. And they held me, she added. My throat felt tight. The city noise faded. I curled my fingers around hers, closing the gaps. Then let me keep doing it, I said. Not just for the building. For you. Her mouth curved into a soft smile. No armor. No mask. Deal, she said. She stepped into me. I pulled her close. We kissed under the quiet sky with the whole weight of the Vanguard below us and neither of us carrying it alone anymore. You know, people think strength means standing alone. But real strength is knowing where you are weak and letting someone brace you. A good building does not pretend bad beams are fine. It replaces them, reinforces them, and keeps going. Love is the same. You do not need someone perfect. You need someone who shows up when the storm hits, holds the line with you, and does not let the roof fall. If you like stories where people actually do the work to stand together, stick around. I have more to tell.
If you felt good in this story, like, subscribe, and join me in the next one. Thank you.